Good evening, everyone. My name is Syed Nababi with the Fairfax County Department of Transportation, and I want to welcome you to this meeting to discuss the Mason Neck Shared Use Path project. Before we begin, I'd like to review some guidelines so everyone can participate and get the most out of this session. Please note this meeting is being recorded and will be posted on YouTube, then linked to the project webpage. Microsoft Teams does offer a live captioning service. You can find that by clicking the three dots labeled More, go to Record and Transcribe, and click on Show Transcript. We will start the presentation, and once the presentation is completed, we will begin the question and answer portion, during which participants will ask their questions aloud. You may also submit questions using the chat function at any time, and we will do our best to answer all questions, while also ensuring that we get to all participants. If you have multiple questions, this may mean you get placed back in the queue so that everyone has a chance to participate. If you're on the phone, please hold your questions to the end. We will have instructions on how to ask questions at the conclusion of the presentation. We also encourage you to submit your comments to today's meeting using the online feedback form that will provide the link at the end of the presentation. Before we begin, I'd like to introduce Mount Vernon District Supervisor Dan Stork and his transportation Diego Rodriguez Cabrera, who are with us tonight at this meeting. I'd like to ask Supervisor Stork to open this meeting with brief remarks.
Well, thank you, Sid. And it's a pleasure to do this. This has been a very, very important trail project for me from the time I first became supervisor in 2016. And I always have to start by honoring Joe Chudzik. Joe is the one who really got it kicked off with the first segment that we did that was in front of Gunston Hall and connected to the state park, Mason Neck State Park. We got another segment in front of that one that run from basically the golf course to there. And the one we're talking about tonight is the next, in my mind, major one that connects really Route 1 Richmond Highway to the school and ultimately to the golf course. And truly, I think we'll make it a fully functional trail, at least out to Mason Neck State Park. So I'm very excited for this. It's mostly been funded with federal money, and I'm sure they'll talk a little bit about that tonight. There is some county money, but most importantly, we have a great county staff who have focused on this, applying for the money and working hard to see if we can continue to build onto these segments. It takes a long time to do this, but I can assure everyone here that it is absolutely has my attention and focus and priority. So again, it's a pleasure to be here, at least briefly. I have another meeting I have to go to after this, but I'm going to listen as long as I can before I drop off to go to my other meeting. But thank you for being part of the meeting tonight. And I just have one more thing to mention while I have everybody here is the only thing I'm particularly was frustrated with the one segment is I want to make sure that whatever railings that they put in, they're black railings so that they kind of disappear into the background. The silver railings rust and look bad, and so I want to just make sure that was on the list for what gets considered as part of the actual trail design, et cetera. So again, thank you.
Thank you, Supervisor. At this point, I'm going to hand it over to Galapa Madhusudan, the project manager for Mason Neck Shared Use Path project.
Thank you, Syed. Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the Citizen Information Meeting for the Mason Neck Shared Use Path project. The agenda for today's meeting. First, we'll talk about the project team, then the location and existing conditions, the purpose and need of this project, and summary of the current design, the property owners, and the anticipated schedule. And towards the end, we're going to have a question and answer session where people can ask questions. Our project team, I'm with the Transportation Design Division. Along with me, I have Syed Nababi and Todd Minix. From the capital project section, we have Tad Barkowski and Daniel Stevens. And we have the land acquisition team involved also from DPWES. Our design consultants are HDR. From HDR, we have Brian Melly and Yusuf Akburi. And our environmental consultants are WRA. And we have Regina Herr and Park Skillep. So this gives you an overall view of the project. So if you look at it, so the project is approximately about 1,500 linear feet, I would say, east of Route 1. And the project runs from Julia Taft Way. In the northern end, it goes all the way to Poik Bay Drive. And this is approximately about 5,500 linear feet long, a mile long, I would think. And by doing this, we're providing connectivity all the way from Route 1 to the state park. Now we look at the existing conditions. So the image on the left highlights the start of the project, where the existing pedestrian facility at Julia Taft Way ends and meets Old Gunston Road. Since we are converting and repurposing majority of the Old Gunston Road for the use of shared use path, it will help in reducing the cost of the project since we're utilizing the existing roadway bedding. As seen in the image on the right, the use of Old Gunston Road will provide a much more enjoyable experience for the pedestrians and cyclists walking and riding under the tree covers with a wider separation from Gunston Road, thus enhancing the safety for pedestrians and bicyclists. The use of Old Gunston Road will also avoid cutting down the mature trees and adverse impacts to wetlands. So the image on the left here highlights a section of Old Gunston Road as it connects back to Gunston Road. This portion of the Old Gunston Road will be maintained to provide access to the two properties located here. The shade use path will veer to the right and be placed between Old Gunston Road and Gunston Road. The image on the right highlights a section of Gunston Road immediately after the end of Old Gunston Road. The project will construct the shade use path along Gunston Road in this area. The image on the left highlights the area across from Gunston Elementary School, where the proposed shade use path, the crosswalks, and the school bus parking are to be provided. So there is currently no dedicated space for school buses, like you see here. Buses are shown parking on the gravel shoulder and grass area. So this is where we're providing a 12-foot paved shoulder, which will be coming up later in the slide. The image on the right highlights the end of the project where our proposed shade use path will meet connecting to the existing trail at the Poik Bay Drive. So the purpose and need of this project. Since there is lack of pedestrian facility right now between Julia Taft Way and Poik Bay Drive, by filling this gap by tying to asphalt shade use path at either end of the project, we are providing connectivity all the way from Julia Taft Way to the schools, bike trails, state parks. And also we are making sure we're enhancing safety. Apart from having a wider separation, we also want to make sure there are ADA compliant ramps at every street crossing and driveway entrances. And also, as part of the school bus parking, we're providing 12-foot paved parking. And then retaining wall, due to grading challenges along the corridor, we are trying to minimize the impacts to property owners by adding retaining walls at certain sections along the corridor. And drainage, we are trying to use the existing drainage system right now. We're trying to use the open ditches and culverts to the eventual outfalls. The design details. Here we have a 10-foot shade use path with a 2-foot graded shoulder, and the alignment follows the Old Gunston Road in the very beginning of the project, and then it meanders away from the Old Gunston Road, at least maintaining a 10-foot separation. It connects from Julia Taft Way all the way to Poik Bay Drive. And like I said before, it connects all the major landmarks, starting from Julia Taft Way to the elementary school, to the state parks, and the bike trails. And drainage, like I mentioned, we are having using the existing open ditches and culverts. We have two major drainage structures, basically culverts, extension of culverts. We have two places we're doing that. And also we're providing stormwater management facilities along the corridor, which we still have to be evaluated. And based on that, we might be eliminating some of them as well. And as part of the NEPA documentation process, since it has got federal funds involved, we're also involved in the cultural resources survey on this project. And like I mentioned before, we have two 12-foot wide cross school bus parking there. I'm sorry, just a 12-foot wide school bus parking there. And also we have two crosswalks, one connecting to the school and one connecting to the Meadowwood bike trail, and one sidewalk connection between the trail and the school. So that's where they were increasing the connectivity. That's what I was trying to say there. Now, going back to the design details here, it gives you some of the major landmarks. Like you see, the one in green is the old Gunston Road, and then the proposed shade use path, and then you'll see along the path, the Cranford Methodist Church. You see the Gunston Elementary School, the proposed school bus parking here, and the sidewalk connection. And also the proposed crosswalks, mid-block crossings, we have one to the school and one to the trail. And Belmont Boulevard is here, and then, okay. So in this section plan view, you'll see this is the Julia Taft Way at the left corner. And now you'll see how we're using the old Gunston Road in the beginning of the project. That's what you're seeing right now. And then you'll see that it meanders away from the old Gunston Road and goes parallel to Gunston Road. And the one in yellow is the existing right away. So on this slide, it shows typical section, the shade use path, 10-foot shade use path with 2-foot graded shoulder. Then also you see the existing Gunston Road. So this is a section. Okay, in this section, you're seeing some of the drainage improvements we're doing along the corridor. This is the one I talked about, a 16 inches RCP pipe we're extending. This is basically to bring it up to grade because the Gunston Road will be at higher elevation compared to the shade use paths. We had to bring it to grade. So that being said, we had to extend the culvert 30-35 feet. And also we have detention basins in this area, which means we're adding more water. So we're trying to do some drainage improvements here. And also we're adding a retaining wall right adjacent to the Cranford Methodist Church to avoid impacts to symmetry. So we are doing our best to avoid impacts to property owners as much as we can, even though we have significant grading challenges along the corridor. And the one in the green runs all the way, okay. So the next in this slide, you'll see again the shade use path with a 2-foot graded shoulder and the existing Gunston Road. And it also shows the separation we're trying to maintain at least 10 feet, which means we're adding safety to the pedestrians and the bicyclists using the shade use path. In this section, this is right across the Gunston Elementary School, where we're adding a 12-foot paved shoulder for the bus parking. And also you'll see there are two crosswalks, one to the school and one to the Meadowwood bike trail. And also you'll see a series of stormwater management facilities, which, like I said before, might be eliminated later. We're just reserving the space for now, but we're still evaluating it. And based on the feasibility studies, we'll figure out if we need to have them or not. On this typical section, you're seeing the school bus parking as well as the shade use path with the wider separation and also the existing Gunston Road. So since we have federal funds involved, we're also trying to follow the NEPA documentation process for this project. That being said, we're doing the cultural resources survey, parks and recreation resources, threatened and endangered species, wetlands and streams. So county will be coordinating with VDOT to complete the environmental review process under the NEPA. And also county will obtain the permits for all the impacts to regulated resources and comply with all applicable laws, regulations, and policies. Now, regarding the impacts. So like I said, there are significant grading challenges. We have tried our best to avoid impacts to property owners. And wherever it's feasible, we have tried to avoid them. We have provided retaining walls. So the properties impacted directly are Northern Virginia Regional Park Authority, then a development property northwest of Cranford Memorial Methodist Church, and a property south of Old Colchester Road. But the other properties which are not adversely impacted are the Cranford Memorial Methodist Church, where we're providing retaining wall in front of them, And then the first two properties in the beginning of the project, 9845 Gunston Road and 9915 Gunston Road, these two properties are not directly impacted, but we are going by their properties. So the preliminary cost estimate, what we have right now is for design is about $2.3 million. For the right-of-way and utility phase, we have $3 million. The construction phase about 8.7, adding up to a total of 14 million. So this is still, the board has not approved it yet. This is something based on a coordination meeting with VDOT and the county. So this amount is still not approved. So just letting you know in advance. The anticipated schedule for this project, the pre-final design will be in February of 2026. The land acquisition begin date is September of 2026. The end of land acquisition will be June of 2027. Utility relocation, July 2027 to January of 2029. The final plans, July 2027. The construction award is February of 2029. Construction end August 2030. And again, this is a very tentative schedule because the design is still evolving right now. It's still under review. So this dates might change significantly. We might be way ahead of schedule as well. Now, Syed, you can take over from now on. That ends my presentation.
Sure. We will now take questions and comments from attendees. You may either ask your question verbally or by chat. Raise your hand located at the top of your screen next to the three dots. Please unmute yourself when your name is called and ask your question or provide your comment. Please mute yourself after you have asked your question. If you are on the phone, press *5 to raise your hand, and when you are called upon by your phone number, press *6 to unmute. After you are finished, please push *6 to mute yourself. You may also submit your questions into the chat, and we will read it. We will read your question out loud. I would like to remind attendees. Actually, we can go ahead and start. So, we do have one question in the text in the chat box. Are there future plans to extend the trail to Joseph V. Gartland Great Marsh Trailhead?
Our planning, this is Todd Minix. Our planning group, I don't think anybody has joined us tonight, but it is on the trail plan to extend it all the way down to the southern end of Gunston Road.
Hey, Todd, I'm here.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, we're still trying to get funding for it. You know, I mean, it's in the past we've applied for federal funding and we haven't gotten any, but we're continuing to look for funding for that. Yeah.
Okay. Next question is from, I hope I pronounce it correctly, Igor Resnick.
Hi, yes, hello, thank you for the opportunity. My name is Igor Resnick. I live off of Belmont Boulevard, and I use the trail a few times a week year-round. So this is a huge quality of life improvement for me and the folks who live over there. One comment I'd like to provide is that I'm not seeing any way to access the trail directly across from Belmont Boulevard. As it stands right now, I'd have to either go against traffic to get to the crosswalk or cross the road anyway and go with traffic until I get to the crosswalk. If there would be any way to put just an inlet, not necessarily a crosswalk at Belmont, but just a paved inlet onto the trail, that would be huge for us over here off of Belmont. That section between Belmont and the golf course is always the scariest part of riding the trail. So this is a huge improvement for us. So thank you.
So let me.
There's something we can make it as part of, we can consider for the next phase, depending on the feasibility of doing that. I do remember talking to you, Mr. Igor. I think we did talk about this, but definitely we can consider. Yeah, we can definitely consider your request And, we'll let you know as we progress. Or maybe if we can inculcate that into the next phase of design.
Right. The next question I have is, why is this a FCDOT project and not a VDOT project? Dan or Todd, do you guys want to respond to that?
Gosh, that's a good question.
That's a difficult question to answer. VDOT is really in the business of building roads, and trails and of this type are typically not their bailiwick, or they prefer that localities do it, so that, for example, we get public input such as this, more so than they do in some respects. They prefer to, I think, have us do these smaller projects because they have bigger fish to fry, so to speak.
Yeah, they tend to
We
do like
do-
the really big regional, like I-66 parallel trail.
Yeah.
I mean,
That was part of that project, yes.
Yeah.
So they built that as part of that. There are a few that they are doing. There's one on Compton Road that again is kind of tied to the I-66 widening. It's going up towards Bull Run Regional Park underneath I-66. There's a connection there that they are doing. But that again was tied to some of the requirements the county put on VDOT in order to proceed with I-66. I don't think requirements is the right word, but it was some of the asks that the county had for VDOT to do these additional projects in the process of doing I-66 widening, for example.
Okay. Next, we have a comment and a question from Miss Nancy Belochka. You haven't included a user group that is recognized on the trail, which is the equestrian community. Please be mindful that the multi-use trail includes equestrian use. Where will the trail cross Old Colchester Road? How far of a setback from the stop sign on Old Colchester will be the crossing, or will the crossing be? So let me share the design file. Okay. So this is at the area of Old Colchester Road. Brian, do you want to speak to that?
Yes, Ed. Good evening. So as you can see in the picture there, we have the detectable warnings, and it is offset from the stop bar. This will certainly be looked at in more detail at the next stage of design, but it is likely that the stop bar and the stop sign will be adjusted to make sure that we meet the requirements as far as offset from the stop sign. One of the considerations, of course, will be sight distance for everybody involved, including the pedestrians and the vehicles.
All right. Next question I have from
If I could just add, in that
Sure.
location, there are some utility poles and so forth that we're trying to avoid and go around them. There are also several historical markers to the left or the north of Old Colchester that we'll probably have to relocate those so they're not right in the middle of the trail as they're currently, or as it's currently designed, but those will be relocated along that parcel in the same general location. But we are trying to minimize any impacts to the utilities as well. So there may be some adjustments to the design in the future where we go behind some of the power poles, and in some cases we may go in front of them.
All right, next question I have from Mr. J. Um, please make it a standard practice to place the feedback / follow-up info from the slides into the chat where visitors can cut and paste it rather than laboriously and error-prone transcribe it for use after the meeting. I will do that. I will copy and paste it into the chat. The question also is sight lines on horseback are often very different from pedestrians, especially with trees and shrubbery. That's comment taken. Let me see if I have it. All right. Let me bring up the, while we are waiting for the next question or comment, I'll copy this and paste it into the chat. So you can use this link to provide comments, questions to us. Okay, next question I have from Ben Arthur. Is it anticipated the most users of this trail will be commuting to work or recreating to the park? Dan, do you want to respond to that?
Yeah, it's mostly kind of recreation in nature, recreational. I think that's kind of what the expectation is. It just helps to provide all those connections to all the parks and Gunston Hall and recreational kind of facilities along Gunston Road. So that's pretty much the major intent there. But I guess you would have that option to be able to go up to Route Run and then all the changes that are happening there. That's also kind of a long-term amenity, I guess, kind of that we took into consideration.
All right. Next question I have from Ryan. Is pedestrian crosswalk light signs going to be considered / placed along the crosswalk at the school, Meadowwood and Old Colchester? Brian, you want to respond to that, please?
Yes, at the next stage of design, we are certainly going to consider any enhancements that may be needed for the pedestrian crossings. We'll be utilizing state criteria to determine what that will be. At this stage, the main purpose is to make sure we identify the locations of the crossings shown here and to consider other comments that have been brought up regarding Belmont Boulevard and other locations. Once those are all decided, then at the next stage of design, additional enhancements regarding the crosswalks will be considered.
I think just to add to that, I think right now the crosswalk assessment study has been done only for those 2 mid-block crossings. And we're not done extensive study about the remaining at this point. But like Brian said, as we go along the design, we will probably look for the feasibility of other locations as well and do more studies in detail.
All right. Okay, I have a comment from Supervisor Stewart. I think it will be used by some school children as well, since Gunston Elementary School boundary includes this Richmond Highway area. Thank you. So, are there any further questions, comments? All right. So I would like to remind attendees that the deadline to provide comments is November 6th. You can submit feedback or ask additional questions through the link provided. The link is https //publicinput.com/I17702. Okay, if there are no further comments or questions, with that, This concludes our meeting on the Mason Neck Shared Use Path project. A recording of the meeting will be available on the project webpage in the next day or so. Thank you for joining us tonight. We really appreciate your time and participation.
Thank you
Thank
all
you.
once again.
Thank you.